All right there, everyone. Researchers have found that political correctness is being rejected by an overwhelming number of Americans. That is what we'll be talking about on today's video. If this is your first time here, a very, very warm welcome to you. I post 2 videos a day analyzing current events in light of conservative trends, and you can help support that by becoming a Patreon supporter, where you'll get even more videos and podcasts that you can only get on Patreon. So please take a minute to avail yourselves of that and enjoy even more video content. And of course, in addition, smack that bell and subscribe button. We are on our way to 100K subscribers, and it'll be a privilege to have you as one of them. All right, let's go back just over 2 years ago to the presidential campaign of 2016. The then Republican candidate Donald J. Trump was saying things that no viable presidential candidate before him had ever imagined any Republican could ever say and still be considered a viable candidate. If you think it through, we've heard it over and over again that a Republican simply could not be elected president without adopting some form of immigration reform and amnesty. He or she had to be seen as pro-immigration, right? Pro-refugee, or we heard over and over again that the gender gap, no viable Republican candidate could ever possibly win the White House without adopting some kind of pro-feminist, indeed even increasingly some would argue pro-abortion, pro-choice platform. The Republican had to be pro-civil rights, pro-multiculturalism, pro-free trade, and on and on and on. That was the ideal Republican candidate forced upon us by a class of establishment political advisors in the mainstream Republican publications, such as the Weekly Standard and, at least to a certain extent, National Review. And then comes along Donald J. Trump, and every time he opened his mouth at a press conference or a rally, he would say things that made the political and media elite absolutely cringe. He spouted what many consider to be the most anti-immigration rhetoric we've ever heard. One that included at one point an all-out ban on Muslims. Do you remember that? Until we could figure what the hell is going on. He came out swinging against Megyn Kelly of Fox News and her treatment of him during the debates, bringing up his supposed disparaging comments towards women. The Washington Post released, by the way, as the Washington Post always does, they released the leaked tape recording of Trump speaking in a sexually derogatory manner towards women. He was accused of being a racist, a sexist, a bigot, a homophobe, and he won. And he won the election overwhelmingly. Remember, Trump is the first Republican presidential candidate to get over 300 electoral votes since 1988. He won 2,700 counties in the United States, which is 85% of the geography of our nation. It was a complete and total electoral blowout. What's the significance of one of the most politically incorrect men on the planet being elected president of the United States? Well, I think no matter how you answer that question, I think we have to conclude, at least in part, that for a vast number of Americans, political correctness simply no longer carries the same weight it used to. So in many respects, you would think that we wouldn't need a formal survey to demonstrate to us that political correctness no longer matters to the vast majority of Americans. But we do, in fact, have such a survey, which clearly corroborates what we've already seen in terms of the Trump electoral landslide. Now, according to a recent survey by an international research initiative called More in Common, researchers asked over 8,000 respondents a number of questions about race, immigration, sexism, free speech, and other cultural issues, and then sorted out the answers into several different categories, such as progressive activists and liberals and moderates and conservatives and really devoted conservatives and the like. And what was interesting in the findings of the survey is that the two conservative categories, traditional and devoted conservatives as well, they made up 25% of the surveyed population. Whereas the two categories for the progressives, they made up only 8% of the population. Now you know why Trump is president. But most noteworthy is the conclusion the researchers drew about political correctness. They found that a full 80% of respondents believed, and I'm quoting them, that, quote, political correctness is a problem in our country, close quote. What the researchers found was that age was not really an issue here. Even younger respondents were prone to find political correctness problematic. Nearly 75% of those between the ages of 24 and 29 thought political correctness was damaging our nation. It was also true 70% of those under the age of 24. Race wasn't an issue either. 79% of whites saw political correctness as a problem. 82% of Asians, 87% of Hispanics, 88% of American Indians. African Americans were more likely to actually support political correctness, but 75% of them thought it was a problem. A clear indicator for this was obviously political affiliation. 97% of conservatives hated political correctness, but even 61% of liberals hated it. Self-identified progressives, the cultural Marxists, right, who eat and sleep and drink political correctness, they were the only ones who showed a clear affinity for it. Only 30% of progressives disliked political correctness. But what was a further decisive indicator for differential attitudes towards political correctness, ironically, was education and income levels. Education level and income levels. Those who had higher levels of education and income believed inordinately that hate speech was a bigger threat than political correctness. They weren't bothered by political correctness really in the least. Now, of course, this shouldn't surprise us. The universities have long been ground zero for the propagation of politically correct sensibilities among its faculty and, to a certain extent, its student body. This has been traced all the way back to the 1960s and the rise of the modern research university and its adoption of a multicultural curriculum that centers on gender and race and sexuality and the like. So I don't think any of us should be surprised that those who have been fully acclimated into this multicultural, politically correct vision of life through the modern university and through transnational corporations are more prone to see racism and hate speech as the major problems we face as a nation. But what this really underscores is that we really are seeing nothing less than a massive populist revolt against our educational and economic elite. That political correctness remains popular among our educational and economic elite while it is rejected by the masses underscores the fact that we are in the midst of a massive populist revolt going on in our nation. So obviously the fact that 80% of respondents find political correctness abhorrent is amazingly good news, and we may not appreciate just how significant this survey is. I don't even think the researchers quite understood the implications of their survey. What we have to realize is that political correctness has up until now functioned very much like a taboo code in our society, in Western society as a whole. So what's a taboo code? Well, we've talked about this in a number of other videos, but a taboo code functions very much like an immune system in any given social order. Societies function very much like a biological organism in that they have immune systems. Social orders, if they're going to survive, have to maintain an equilibrium of power relations between the various institutions and structures and arrangements in the social nexus. If that equilibrium gets disrupted, the social order falls apart or is in effect replaced with a new one. And what cultural anthropologists have noticed is that what's essential to maintaining that equilibrium is what we call a value system or system of values that function to define what is considered morally normal and indeed admired and exhorted, and conversely, what is morally reprehensible and stigmatized. This is how a taboo code functions in a society. It functions to protect and preserve the equilibrium of power relations between the various institutions that together comprise a unique social order. This has been the function of political correctness. Political correctness is a taboo code for modern liberal globalist societies. Political correctness has one job and one job only, and that's to identify threats to a secular globalist social order and effectively neutralize those threats by marginalizing them with social stigma labels, such as being a racist and bigot, sexist, homophobe. Those are what we might call the big four, right? Being a racist, bigot, sexist, homophobe is absolutely the worst possible stigma any person can accrue in a secular globalist world. Well, no more. According to the survey, such labels are themselves becoming the object of social stigma. Yeah, I mean, you need to get, do not leave this video without getting that. You have to get that. Political correctness is itself becoming the new social stigma. To be politically correct is to socially shame oneself. In light of a new emerging taboo system that sees political correctness as itself the poison, right? Political correctness is itself becoming the taboo, which means that a new social order is indeed emerging that's ready to be embraced by any 80% of the population if this study reflects wider national trends accurately. So there you go. This study is providing further evidence that the days of politically correct cultural Marxism are numbered. A new, very, very politically incorrect age is emerging. And as far as I'm concerned, it cannot come soon enough. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Click on our Patreon link below. Become a monthly supporter of this channel and help us to continue to analyze current events in light of awesome conservative trends so that you can personally and professionally flourish. God bless.